The transfer portal is cruel and it is kind. Boston College basketball has been dodging the transfer portal, but it took its first victim on Wednesday.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. We got a busy show for you folks today. We got three big items we're going to talk about. First, the first BC player on the basketball team has entered the transfer portal. We'll discuss who that is, what the implications are for the Eagles. We're going to look at one of the new coaches, Ray Brown, defensive backs coach as well. I want to talk about why I think he could be the sleeper steal of this group. And finally, the folks over at The Athletic came up and did a report on a new proposal that is being pushed by some venture capitalists about college football. This could be crazy. Will it get enough buzz to get going? We'll talk about what this proposal is and how it would impact Boston College. All of this on today's show. So let's dive in. First of all, the biggest news of the day. It's been almost a week and a half since BC lost to UNLV, and we have not seen a name in the transfer portal. If you listen to yesterday's episode, I told you next 48 hours we'd get our first transfer portal entry, and we got exactly that on Wednesday afternoon as guard Jaeden Zackery announced on Twitter that he was going to enter the transfer portal. Now, we've talked about him as a potential transfer portal candidate on the show because, he's played for BC for 3 years. I think he's basically done everything he can right now, other than making the tournament. And I'm not going to be the Debbie Downer here, but unless BC kills it in the portal, they're not making the tournament next year. But he's done everything. He came here from a community college JUCO, excuse me. Chipola College in Florida, played 3 years here, averaged 10 points per year. He shot 47% as a true freshman from 3-point range, which is crazy. You don't remember that from that year unless you really dig into it, but he had such a big year that year. But then he was amongst the leaders in the ACC in steals. He was good on both sides of the floor. A slasher, a guy that could make good passes. He had some big games as well. I go back to that game last year against UVA. I think he had 8 points in a row to give them that win. He sealed the win for BC in the ACC tournament to upset Wake. He had 22 points this year against Clemson in the ACC tournament to seal that upset. There maybe have been times where he wasn't the focal point of the offense, but Jaeden Zackery was the heart and blood of this team. He was the heart and soul. He was Boston College through and through, and he was the guy, one of the first guys that Earl Grant recruited to come here when he first took over in 2021. An excellent player, a guy that is now a big miss because now what you're losing, you've lost two of your biggest scorers. You've still got Claudel Harris, which I get a little bit queasy thinking about him as your leading scorer. I don't want that next year. But you lost Quentin Post. Quentin Post is gone. You lost Jaeden Zackery. Jaeden Zackery is gone. What do you have left? You have Mason Madsen, who is a fine complementary player, but is he your lead scorer or a guy that could do that? No. Would you put Chaz Kelly out there? I mean, Beacon Street Ball loves him, the guy that's been on our podcast a bunch. Have not seen enough of Chaz Kelly to make me feel confident that he can fill Zackery's shoes. Zackery was a great ball handler. That was a big thing for him. Chaz Kelly sometimes looks like he's holding a hot potato. I'm not sure about that. DJ Hand, same thing. Doesn't play the same type of, he's more of a shooter than a ball handler than Jay-Z. So you have a big gap now. So this is where you need to start talking about the transfer portal. You're not bringing in a guy, Luca Toes and Nick Petronio, your two true freshmen. Petronio, I believe, is the one that's coming back from a pretty serious knee injury, and I've heard he's going to take some time. Luca Toes, maybe Toes. I think it's Toes. I'm not sure. Do you really want to go into next year with a true freshman running the point? So you're going to be looking at transfers. This is one. BC has once. This is their only spot available right now. Now, many folks on Twitter think this is not the last um, player to leave. There's names like Mason Matson, Prince Aligby. We don't know yet. The only name that we know about is Zackery. So right now, you get to fill his spot. And there's options out there. We gave you some of them on yesterday's episode, but this is big. And I'm already starting to get the uneasy feeling about next year because I look at the talent level on this team, and there's some good players. I could watch Devin McLaughlin play forever, and maybe Elijah Strong will eventually, get himself up to be an everyday starter. But I'm a little concerned of where this team looks like it's going to be at. And for the folks that are worried about where Earl Grant is going to be in terms of like how he has this team ready, is he the right coach? It to me, my biggest worry is right now, and this is before any more portal news happens, is that this team will not be a team ready to compete in the ACC. They just, I just can't wrap my head around it. Like, you got McLaughlin, you have, a couple players that if they continue to be developed, they might be the right answer, but that's a lot of big question marks. You know, I, going into this year, you felt more confident, right? Like you're like, oh, I got Quentin Post. You have Zackery. You have a couple new. You brought in Claudel Harris to bring as another weapon. I look at next year's team and I say to myself, this team is missing something. And maybe going into the transfer portal, like maybe you lose another player or two, and that's not the worst thing in the world. Maybe you then go out there and you grab a shooter, and then you make a splash move like TJ Powers, the one I keep going back to, the forward/center from Duke. He, Beacon Street Ball thinks he's going to enter the portal. He's a local kid. That would be the kind of move that would be really exciting and would make fans a little bit more ready for next year. But he's going to have a huge offer list too, I'm sure. So we'll have to wait to see what happens here. It doesn't feel good, but I think everyone knew Zackery was going to leave. It doesn't seem like this was a big surprise. So you got to hope that the staff felt like they knew that they have to make some moves. And that's why you've seen BC connecting with a bunch of guards. This is the first one. I would be shocked if there's not one more guard that leaves as well. And there's a bunch of names. And I'm not telling you I know anyone specific. I'm just saying I think there'll probably be one more guard that'll go too. So we'll have to wait and see what that is. But Jaeden Zackery was a fun player. Really appreciated watching him. He was a fun, he's a guy that gave it all every time he was out there. This is a guy that on both ends of the floor, hustle. That was his MO. So I hope he finds a good program. I hope he goes to a program where he can go and play in the tournament. I feel like that would be a great end of his career for him. So, no ill will. This is what it is, right? This is just how it goes. So hopefully he finds something good out there. Now, in a moment, I want to get to football. And one position I have not talked a lot about so far is defensive backs. And throughout the first month, there's one coach that I have not really talked about as well. And I think he's going to be the real steal of this coaching staff. I'll explain why in a little bit. The sports calendar is loaded. You've got college basketball, women's college basketball, Major League Baseball, NHL, soccer. You've got Quidditch. You've got chess. I know there's so much out there. I'm kidding with those last two, but FanDuel is making it even more exciting to get in on the action because right now new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can bet to use on the tournament. Major League Baseball. I love prop bets. There's so many great prop bets, and I don't know what it is about baseball, but those are so much more fun. Like Tristan Cassis of the Red Sox. He's been on a hot streak, and just putting a quick prop on him getting a hit has been a easy way to like make a few wins. Then there's also the NBA, the NHL, and so much more. If you want to get yourself involved, get into FanDuel right now. So visit fanduel.com/locked on and make your first bet a big win with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black. And I want to talk today about the defensive backs. And I I made a joke about this coach when I went to my first practice. I was like, wow, he's a shorter coach. And he listens to the podcast, but let's just leave it at that. Funny guy, though. And Ray Brown, I think, is a guy that folks are going to want to know about. Ray Brown is the defensive backs coach who took he had 2 stops before this that you would want to know about with Utah State and Wazoo, and was the pick from Tim Lewis and Bill O'Brien to run the defensive backs. He was on one of those lists of the 30 under 30s, the hot new coaches coming up, and I heard a lot of good buzz about him. But it took until practice started and the recruiting trail kicked in for me to really understand why I think he's going to be a great fit for Boston College. Now, first of all, on the field, you have some good defensive backs that just needed some development, whether it is Max Tucker, whether it's KP Price or Bug Jones or Carter Davis. There's a bunch of younger defensive backs. And being able to go to some of these scrimmages and watch these players play, he's got them ready. I watched Max Tucker at the end of last year and saw a player at one point that looked very much like a freshman. By the end of the year, he made some big plays and had, I think it was the SMU game in the bowl, looked pretty good. But, sometimes that was a crappy weather game, and that makes things a little easy, especially when you have a backup quarterback in there. But watching him at practice was another thing. He looks good. He looks like an ACC level quarterback, and that's a credit to him, and it's a credit to the staff that's getting him ready for that. And I think Ray Brown's a big part of that. I look at Bug Jones, a name that most folks probably don't even know much about. He looks like he's ready to be a safety this year. We talked about this on guys that are jumping up the depth chart, right? Again, like that's developing. That's part of being a good coach, and Ray Brown is doing that. I've liked what I've seen. They're battling against good wide receivers in practice. It's that iron sharpens iron mentality, where these defensive backs, they're going into practice. They have to guard, whether it's good wide receivers with good technique with Lewis Bond, Jerron Bradley, Dino Tomlin. They're all, technically good wide receivers, or speedy guys like, Nate Johnson or Jaden McGowan. They've had to be able to battle out there, and to watch them make big plays, it's been great. And the biggest name that I've seen continue to develop, and I said this on Monday's show, is Amari Jackson. Like, he looks like they've got him ready to be a lockdown corner. So just watching the first couple scrimmages I've gotten to, and I'm going to get to the third one on Saturday. The defensive backs have been making plays, and it's a position last year where you felt by the end of the year you're a little worried. I feel like he's got good depth. There's guys like Ryan Turner, Ryquise Brown. You got Jalen Cheek, looks like he's possibly playing safety. They've got that going, but they look good. They look like they're ready. And so I give a lot of credit to Tim Lewis and Ray Brown for that. Now, the other piece with Brown is that he's killing it on the recruiting trail right now. There are some really interesting prospects, recruits that are interested in BC. One name I want to showcase today is Dante Core. Dante Core is from Fort Walton Beach in Florida, I believe. I'm pulling up his numbers right now. And yeah, he's a 3-star, but 3 stars, you get a lot of those, right? He's a track star. Let's listen to what Dante Core has had happen in the last 2 months since February 3rd. He has been offered by Auburn, NC State, Mizzou, LSU, and I believe he got offered by Florida too. No, he's not. He's been to a bunch of camps in Florida, but he's been offered by SEC schools, and he's taking an official visit to Boston College. He originally committed to USF, but this is a guy that's blowing up, and he's not the only one. There's a wide receiver, Deontay Lindsay, from Oklahoma of all places, that he has coming, and he's got offers from like Texas Tech and Utah, and he's got some other big names there too. So he's getting really interesting names and bigger recruits here. So, I think a lot of folks go back to like Azar Abdul Rahim in what he was able to do recruiting, and some people didn't like his recruiting style. And others look at now with Darrell Wyatt, but don't sleep on Ray Brown. I think this guy is going to really bring some quality defensive backs here and develop them. And that's just what I've seen from him so far. So I think he's going to be a steal. You get guys on there that have been, seasoned guys, whether it's Jeff Commission or Tim Lewis or, Dan O'Brien. There's guys that's just been around, right? And that's great. Like you want guys that are seasoned vets. But then you have younger guys like Will Long, the offensive coordinator. It's his first go around, and even Savon Huggins is still on the younger side. But I look at Ray Brown and I say to myself, I think he has the highest ceiling in terms of the total package of what you're looking for a college coach. So know that name, because I think he's going to be someone people are going to be talking about as the season goes on. Just wanted to give you that little piece right there. Now, in a moment, we're going to talk about the Athletic website, who posted an article about a college football proposal that a group of venture capitalists are creating that would be really interesting if it passes. We'll get into what that is, if it'll happen, and much more. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. I use my Fire Stick to get my cable, a lot of my streaming services, and I've done it for 7 years now. And I love it. I love having my Fire Stick because it's so easy. Everything's all in one spot, and there's so many different options. Now, Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the pro big leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV in Alexa devices. And if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me. AJ Black on all of this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black. So if you have not checked out Eagle Insider, I'm the editor over there. I have an army of writers. In the last week, I probably have 15, 16 articles on BC recruiting. I've talked to recruits, I've talked to the staff, I've talked to coaches, you name it, I've talked to them. Got all the details up there. Right now, it's 30% off, but I really want you to think about becoming a member. Join our community. There's tons of information up there. We have Mitch doing scouting reports on Christian Mahogany, Elijah Jones. He'll have one on Kyle Hergel. We have Beacon Street Ball dissecting the basketball team and what's next. We have Skip McCarty talking baseball as the season progresses there. We have BC Hockey Blogger as the Frozen Four goes on. It is a happening place. And if you're not joining us, you're missing out. So just go over to Eagle Insider. And if you have questions, DM me. Find me on Twitter at AJBlack247. I'd love to see each and every one of you become a premium member. You can do it for I know it's 30% off right now, so it's like $5 or $6 a month. And I think you'll enjoy it, and it will support the work that we're doing. Now, The Athletic is another place that has subscriptions, and Stuart Mandel and his co-writer, who I don't have his name in front of me right now, just did an interesting research post on this new proposal that's coming up by a group of venture capitalists, including the number 2 guy in the NFL, a a bunch of investors, and I'm trying to pull up the names. I don't have the names in front of me. Anyways, they're trying to create a super league that will hopefully eradicate a lot of the issues that are going on in college football, including a boatload of lawsuits that are going to come down, NIL, transfer portal. They're going to try to do something that's going to eliminate all those issues. And the way they're going to do this, and I'm not going to get into all the details, I want you to make sure you read it if you have questions about it, is they want to create the Super League that would basically almost mirror what you see in college in the Premier League in soccer, which would be that they'd have 70 teams, 60. So they said every single Power 5 team would be part of it, including Boston College. Yay, we're not left out if this was to pass. They would also invite, I think it's 10 group of 5 schools, and then some of them could be out and in depending on they would relegate and promote them based off of records. So why would you do this? Well, it would save a lot of the money. They would be able to collectively bargain. It would pretty much unionize all of the athletes, so that would eliminate all of the pending lawsuits. If you unionize, you can basically deal with them and collectively bargain with them. You would get a new media deal. You would prevent the Big Ten and SEC from basically running away with everything. But there's a lot of hurdles, and it doesn't sound like this is going anywhere. But it's an interesting thought exercise, and I like bringing that up because it sounds like the group of investors or creators met with the ACC. The ACC sat down because I'm sure they're like, "Ooh, we're not going to get left out. Let's do this before everyone runs away." Speaking of lawsuits, the FSU and Clemson, that's another one. On top of that, the Big Ten and SEC, they were supposed to have lunch with them, but both of them bailed on them. So, would this ever pass? Probably not. I mean, the SEC and Big Ten, they have media deals like that are far and beyond some of these other programs. Why would they ever just give in to that? Like, there's no carrot at the end of a stick for them to do this. Like, they've already got a sweet deal. Why would they get out of it? But the part that I also like to look at was that Reddit, college football on Twitter, they took the 70 teams, and based on the article, there would be 7 conferences. They're like divisions, basically, not conferences, because they're all locked together. It's not like the ACC working as one in the Big Ten, and then they'd all be locked together. There'd be 7 conferences of 10 teams. And so Reddit college football kind of made what they would expect it to look like. And I'm going to put that up on the screen right now. So BC would not be in the ACC. They're not be in but the AAC is not part of this either. So that's good. They would be part of the Big East, which, I think they're just kind of spitballing here. But I look at what the rest of this conference would be. The rest of the Big East would be BC, Louisville, Miami, Notre Dame, Penn State, Pitt, Rutgers, Syracuse, UCF, and Virginia Tech. Tough conference, first of all. When you have Miami, Notre Dame, and Penn State. So it's not like you're going to get anything easier from this. Better, more historic rivals? Absolutely. Would I rather see BC play Notre Dame and Miami than Florida State and Clemson? Yes, 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 yes. Would I like to see Penn State back on BC's schedule? Yes. Would I like to see BC play Rutgers? Sure. I guess. I mean, I'd rather see BC play Rutgers than like Virginia or Georgia Tech. So it's like basically like Big East 2.0. And like my last thought of all this, right? Like you can see all the other conferences on there, is that if this was to ever come like to this, and there's been a bunch of people that say something's going to happen. So this isn't like this may not work, but maybe there'll be something that will work. It seems like if like looking at this and having BC back in the Big East, it seems like everything is a circle, right? Like time is just a circle. It just you go right back to where you were 20 years ago, and that's what BC is gonna would go back to, right? But it was interesting, and then it leaves you to think too. If this was to happen, this would be like kind of what we've been kind of speculating here in Lockdown BC, where football and basketball you'd be part of two different conferences. So that would allow BC to be in this super conference thing and get their money there. But also then put them back in the Big East in basketball, right? So you play your UConn's, Georgetown, Providence's again. I think that's a win-win right there. Like I've said this all along. I want BC to play with the big boys in football, but I want to go back to the big boys in Big East for basketball. I would much rather play those teams than the ones they're playing right now. So, what are your thoughts? Leave it all in the comment section. Love to hear what you have to say about this proposal. And it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere, but something's going to happen. And I don't think if this is this one. The interesting thing about this article too was that the two people they talked to was the president of WVU and the president of Syracuse. You didn't get the president of like Florida State or the president of Clemson or any of the big programs that are trying to get more money out of this. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. On tomorrow's show, we will get into preview of the weekend, everything in between. Make sure you check us out at Twitter at AJBlack247, over at Eagle Insider. And thank you all who have made us your first listen every day. I see more and more of you checking us out. Hit that like and what they say, like and five and I don't know what it's called. 5 and subscribe. That's it. Give us 5 stars. Subscribe to us. Make sure you tell your friends about Lockdown BC because we are the only daily Boston College podcast, and I appreciate each and every one of you who listens to us. Thank you all so much, and thank you for making Locked On Boston College your team every day.